stick to the basic exercises when I train shoulders, and I'll mix quite a few factors up within that framework, such as rep range, frequency, volume, exercise order, and I'll do this just to subject the muscles to new forms of tension. I do like to start most shoulder workouts with presses, but there are plenty of times that I might start with the side delts first, with side raises or upright rows, and then move on to my presses from there, just to mix things up a bit. When I perform presses, I like the standard upright angle, and there are plenty of times that I'll perform high incline presses for the shoulders. Since that really hammers the front delt, it's very natural to do, so I might perform high incline presses, move to an upright press using both barbells and dumbbells. There are times where I'll squeeze at the top, but generally speaking, I don't lock out when I perform presses or movements for the shoulders, just as I wouldn't for any other body part. I keep tension on the muscle, keep the weight moving, keep the tension in the sweet spot, and just really blast the muscle until it approaches failure. And of course, I'll take many sets to failure in that fashion. What you'll find if you keep the weight moving and you don't squeeze is you're actually going to fail a lot quicker with a given weight. If you can perform a given weight for 10 repetitions, I'd be willing to bet that you fail at around 6 or 7 repetitions if you keep the weight moving. And that right there should tell you just how much more stimulation the muscle is subjected to, as opposed to locking out and squeezing. How often I train the shoulders, including the volume of sets, is going to be based on my split at any given time. I might train the shoulders only once every 2 weeks when I'm on my power-based routines where I'm trying to increase my strength. And there are other times to where I'm focusing more on development, getting a good pump, I'm not going so heavy, and I might work the shoulders twice a week. So when I do that, usually what I'll do is I'll focus on presses the first time for the first workout, and then I might focus on the side delts and side raises and upright rows for the second workout. One of my favorite exercises for the side delts is a single arm upright row with a dumbbell. I feel this exercise is outstanding. I get a great pump in the side delts from this. I also feel it's easier on the rotator cuff. There's less of a chance of shoulder impingement, and it's just much more natural. I can also shift the peak tension around with this movement just by angling the body a bit, and overall I feel I can work the side delts through a fuller range of motion with a single arm dumbbell upright row. A lot of guys will blast their front delts with presses, and they'll even hit their upright rows, but then when it comes to the rear delts, all of a sudden they're doing these straight arm reverse flies or rear delt raises, but they don't really perform a compound movement like some sort of rowing movement for the rear delts. And that's one mistake I think they make, because one of the best exercises that I've personally performed for the rear delts is a rear delt row, where I bend the arm a bit. It's sort of like a row for the back, but I won't retract the shoulders, and I'll focus on bringing my upper arm back. Since I've been using compound movements for the rear delts, a rear delt row in particular, my rear delts have just popped out, and it's given my shoulders a fuller look overall, especially from the sides and my side poses. I use straight sets for the most part, but I've had quite a bit of success with pre-exhaustion, where I might perform side races for the side delts and then move on to upright rows where I'm bringing the biceps into play and just going to finish them off that way. So I'll pre-exhaust the rear delts in the same way. I might perform some reverse flies with the arm straight, get them somewhat exhausted, and then move on to a rear delt row. So pre-exhaustion works very well. What has really helped my shoulder training, as well as the training of every other body part in the upper body, is rotator cuff work. What happens, what most people don't realize, is when you perform these major movements for the shoulders and you use a lot of power and a lot of force, your major muscles tend to really assist in the functions that the rotator cuff might perform, which in turn is going to cause the rotator cuff muscles to atrophy. They're going to shrink, they're going to become weaker. That's just a bad scenario to be in, because one day, just out in daily life, if you move the arm a certain way, or you twist and turn, you shut the car door, you can actually tear something in the rotator cuff muscles. I'll perform about 4 or 5 different exercises for the rotator cuff, hitting all 4 muscles. And this has worked very well. My shoulders feel very strong. Back in the past, I used to get spasms in the infraspinatus and just different muscles in the rotator cuff. And since I've been performing this way, performing rotator cuff work, I don't experience those spasms at all anymore. So little muscles in the rotator cuff area, they need to be worked, and the same thing with the hips. Whenever I do quadriceps training, I'll perform hip work, and you got to work those little muscles. That's going to strengthen all your core lifts. It's going to make you stronger for those core lifts, and of course that in turn is going to allow you to progress in terms of development. So you got to work the rotator cuff, and you got to work it thoroughly.